Well, hey, it's so good to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
You bet. I find the world of being a voice actor totally fascinating, and it totally permeates so much of how we form. I mean, it's huge. It's monumental. It forms the way that we go into films and our anticipation and how we construct all of these worlds in our mind. But before we get to that and how this became your life, I want to know one of the things that really shaped us was the COVID thing. And I know we're all getting tired of talking about it. But now that we look back on getting through that really hardcore time, how did you survive the pandemic and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
So pre-pandemic, so I come from a background of theater as well and puppetry. And so I was doing a lot of theater, live performance in addition to voiceover. I started voiceover back in 2015. But then when the pandemic hit, it just really became all encompassing about working from home, right? And so I was very grateful that I was in a position that I had this studio, I had a setup, I was able to work during that time. It was extremely isolating because, it's just me. So there's no colleagues, there's nobody to talk to. So uh, it was quite isolating and it was very lonely, but I was very, very grateful every day for the amount of work that did come in and that kept me sane during that time. And a lot of the projects were very emotional projects. Obviously, during that time, there was a lot of emotions coming up, and it was a very heavy time. And so to be able to storytell with all of that in mind and be able to be the voice for companies and for folks who are going through hard times was really touching too.
So let's hone in on exactly what you do. It's very clear on paper, but this always changes things. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade schoolers, third graders. Okay, it's career day. And one of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your answer?
I talk for a living. I talk, I play, and I storytell. So the basis of all the work that I do, regardless of whether it's animation, commercial, video game, narration, e-learning, whatever it may be, the basis of it is storytelling. So be able to tell a compelling story to get your attention and to have people listen.
So when you were in the third grade, what did you want to be? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I think at that point, I wanted to be a vet.
Okay, yeah.
Because I really liked animals. But
Uh-huh.
it wasn't until I was about 15 that I decided that I wanted to be an actor. I started to come out of my shell at like grade six, grade seven. I started to figure out that I could do some funny voices and funny characters. And then it kind of just went into the direction of acting. And voiceover kind of just fell into my lap. When I was in my early 20s, when I had just finished a second the second theater school that I attended. And it was just kind of like an accident that it just happened that way.
Yeah. So take me back to your childhood. What were these foundational elements that made you comfortable being an actor and being in front of people and projecting your voice? How did all of those seeds kind of get harvested and grow into this career you have?
Well, I was a super shy kid, really shy, really introverted. But I was really good at mimicking. And I speak three languages fluently and a few other sporadic languages here and there. So I was really good at picking up tone and rhythm and placement. And so when I started to figure out that I could mimic certain cartoons or mimic certain voices, that was a way for me to make friends. And that was a way for me to, entertain the people around me. And then it just kind of grew into something bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I was like, hey, I think I could maybe want to be an actor.
What was the first really big gig? I mean, you got a lot of big names on your resume like Disney and Google and but what was the first big gig where you're like, I can't believe that this is actually a paid gig. This is what I'm doing.
Well, the Google project was massive. That was probably the biggest job that I've ever done. It was one of those things where I had sent in an audition, didn't know if I had booked it, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Yeah, you're in. You're strapped in. We working with you pretty much every available hour you have for the entire month."
Wow.
That was insane. And to see the campaign and to see it was for the Google Nest Wi-Fi, Google Nest Mini, and a bunch of Google kind of tutorial videos.
Yeah.
So it encompassed about 45 videos.
Wow.
So it was a lot. It was a lot of voicing. It was a lot of recording, and it was all done in my home studio, which was
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
And seeing that come to fruition and then seeing the ads on TV was absolute insanity. That was when it really sunk in that I was like, "Oh, that's I recorded that here and now I'm seeing it on my TV." And
Yeah.
having relatives call me in the States saying, "Hey, we saw your commercial."
That's awesome. So how does that work in that world? Is it a flat fee or is it a residual? I know voice actors, it all kind of fluctuates, but how does that work? How does it tend to work?
So it depends whether it's a job within the union or outside of the union.
Gotcha.
So all of my work is outside of the union.
Gotcha.
That's just kind of my choice at this point in my career. I think eventually I would like to join the union, but right now everything is out of the union. And as far as residuals, a lot of companies tend to do like bigger buyouts for
Gotcha.
those kinds of things. Yeah, but that's all. However, it's negotiated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I figured. I just didn't know how it panned out. So let me ask you this. Who has been kind of your hero, your role model? Who have you looked up to that's helped you in this career?
I would say, like, there's a lot of, famous voice actors that I look up to and I see their career trajectory and I see, like Tara Strong, E.G. Daily, Nancy Cartwright, Lori Allen, all of those really famous cartoon voice actors that I listened to growing up. And some of them I had the pleasure of meeting, which
Yeah.
was insane. But the reason why I got into voiceover and I felt so comfortable was because the community of voice actors is probably the most generous, most giving, most kind community that I've ever been a part of. And I grow so much knowing those people that helped me when I was starting out.
Yeah.
And so there's just so many people within the North American community that I look up to and I see their careers and their trajectory and just the community as a whole. If it wasn't for the community, I don't think I would be where I am right now.
So if you could meet one of these people in the community that you haven't, that you've looked up to, that's been kind of a role model to you, who would you love to meet and spend some time with?
Um, I mean, the people I mentioned.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, the people I mentioned for sure, because they were all on shows that I watched as a kid.
Yeah.
Tara Strong was Fairly Odd Parents, Powerpuff Girls, and Lori Allen was on SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Nancy Cartwright was Bart Simpson.
And Nancy Cartwright was in a movie when I was a kid. I grew up in the 80s, and there was a movie, Billie Jean. And Christian Slater was in it, but she was in it, and she was kind of a younger, kind of just, she had a weird voice at that point, but I think that's who she ended up becoming. I think she was an actual actress in the beginning, so it's wild. Um, so along with the voiceovers, are you pursuing acting and doing things on camera and doing all that as well?
Not on camera.
Okay.
I did a little bit of on-camera stuff here and there for small indie projects when I had first got out of school, but my main focus outside of voiceover is live theater.
Okay.
So musicals, plays, but in the last maybe like 7, 8 years or so, I've been doing a lot more puppetry. So if I do end up in front of the camera, it's with puppet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
What's interesting about you talking about the community is that, I have a jazz radio show and jazz musicians are some of the greatest, absolutely greatest people on the planet. And to be around that collective energy and that good vibe of just kind of having this shared pursuit is so refreshing. It just has
yeah.
to make what you do that much better.
Absolutely. And this is it's a very isolating job. It's a very solo career. And sometimes you want to be able to talk to other people that are in the same position as you and be able to find camaraderie and compassion and, just talk shop with folks.
Yeah.
And, if we're always there for each other, we're always helping each other because we know how lonely this business can be.
So do you have to do exercises and work on your voice? Do you do any like vocal enhancements or exercising? I mean, I know it sounds like to most people it might be a weird question, but do you have to do anything prep?
If I am working on animation, like video games, cartoons, and stuff like that, I definitely do some warm ups. I have a singing background as well, so it's a lot of singing warm ups, scales, things like that. If it's just for commercial or just in a role where I'm just speaking in my normal voice, I do a lot of articulation exercises to
Gotcha.
make sure that sound's coming out clear. I'm not mumbling over my words. If I know that I have to speak really fast, like sometimes I'll read, legals for ads and it's hyper speed. Like they don't speed that up. We read it that fast.
It's
And
like
so I got to make sure that
microdosing.
I could get it.
Yeah. I'm a big audiobook reader. Do you listen to audiobooks?
I haven't really delved into the audiobook world.
Okay.
I know from the voice acting perspective, it is a completely different set of people. It's a completely different community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I have so much respect for the audiobook community because it is I would say the hardest, the hardest
Okay.
genre of VO.
That's interesting because I listen to them all the time. I actually I take in things auditorily. I read really slow, so it makes sense to me. But there's some people that I'm just like, why did they pick them? And it's not a mean spirit. It's just like I have to really turn it up and the enunciation. So it's like all of those things that you're talking about that are a part of like legal ads and whatnot. I hone in on that with an audiobook. So it's an interesting world. But you're right. I mean, there's so many inflections. It's a long form kind of thing. There's a lot of action going into an audiobook.
Yeah, very, very long form. You have to love to read. You have to love the content. You have to love it so much to make it interesting for the listener. And then some audiobook voice actors do a lot of their own editing too,
Yeah.
which is a whole other subset of skills that, it takes a lot of time and a lot of listening to yourself for hours and hours on end.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. What is the motivation for you every day to wake up and to continue to do this, to strive to do better, and to not only do the work that you do, but to evolve as a human being yourself? What is that collective energy every day?
So I'll talk about a job that I recently did. So it was a job that I did for Disney last year. That was really a defining moment career-wise because it was a character that was the first Armenian character ever represented at Disney. And I got the honor to voice that character.
Cool.
And that was so cool and such an homage to my Armenian heritage. I got to speak Armenian on the episode as well. And when that episode came out, I can't tell you the overflow of emotions that I received from people all over the world saying thank you for representation, thank you for representing us on such a global scale. And I had, kids were getting excited watching the episode, seeing themselves portrayed on TV, but parents were also messaging me saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for doing it justice and making us proud. So that was last March when that episode came out, and kind of since then I've been still riding that emotional high of like this is why I'm doing this. It's to
Yeah.
tell stories, it's to be the voice for those who are not represented enough, and to keep giving that encouragement. And I had a bunch of young Armenian actors messages me saying, how can I get into this? How can I do this? And so that also sparked conversation as well. So that's kind of my reason for being, is to keep telling those stories and to keep inspiring others to also tell their stories.
That's the thing about this last election cycle, this cycle that we went through. Immigration was so reviled and demonized, unfortunately. And it's the backbone of this country. And Disney is always really good about bringing in firsts of different cultures and different peoples that all make this place called America. Because I have never, I'm 52 and I've never run into anybody that's like, I'm 100% American. Like all
Yeah.
my blood is from here. No one says that. And my ancestors came to Ellis Island from Italy. Everybody has a story, and to be able to have that highlighted from, a group that doesn't get that much exposure is a huge, huge deal. And I know that's the thing. I went to Disney this summer, and I was really thinking about just the behemoth that Disney is. And that's the one thing they do really well is they'll pull in all of these threads that people may not think about, but are very, very vital to this tapestry of America.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, it's a behemoth of an organization, of a company, and it has such a pull and it has such an impact. And so to see to experience what that impact was on a personal level was something that I was not expecting ever, I think.
Yeah. So if you could go to that version of you, you have a dream tonight, and you can go to that young version of you before you did your first voiceover gig, before this life began for you, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life, this journey you've had, the wisdom you've accumulated over the time. What advice would you impart on that younger version of you?
Just try it. Just try it. And there's no such thing as failure. It's just redirection. Yeah, jump in with both feet and be courageous.
So, of all of these movies with voiceover actors that is increasingly becoming a part of the movie lexicon, what was the movie for you growing up that you loved the most?
So many Disney movies. Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, Aladdin. I grew up with all of that kind of era of those Disney films. And then when more like 3D kind of animation came out, like Shrek,
Yeah.
was big. All the Pixar movies that came out, also Toy Story, all of those animated movies, like they really raised me. And so, being able to work with those companies as an adult, again, it's very surreal.
Yeah. So of all of these things that you've done and accomplished, the exposure you've gotten, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
The Disney job.
Yeah.
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 It's made the most impact. It's been the most fulfilling for me as well, to be able to say I worked for Disney, and I also got to, be a first, representation wise as well. So it encompasses a lot of different kind of, firsts for me.
So on this career path of being in a very highly exposed kind of industry, I'm sure you get advice. People are always giving pointers to people. What's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Never stop learning.
Yeah.
Never stop learning and always be coachable. There's always something that you could learn. And sometimes I would like feel myself kind of, I would feel a bit cocky. The ego would kind of come in, and then I would have to bring myself down to earth and go, you don't know everything. We are having a good day or a good week. And then we got to reset. We got to go back. So to always ask questions, always keep learning. And, yeah, again, it's kind of, again, to just try, to not be scared, to just be courageous and just give it a go.
So Disney has been one of a very big pride point. It's a big company. It's a big gig. Is there and obviously along with learning more, you dream more. What's the next big place? What's the next company, the gig that you're like pie in the sky that you would love to get?
I would love to be on like an original kind of series, kind of like a Bob's Burgers.
Yep.
I love those kinds of shows. They're so funny, they're so accessible, and they're great. They're so well written, and to be
Yep.
able to play with another group, with a whole group of actors, I know that they record together. So something that a lot of people don't know is that a lot of voice actors just record on their own. I've done a lot of animated series, and I don't hear the other actors on the line.
Yeah, right, right.
I just read my lines and then we call it a day.
That's it.
But with a lot of those series and with a lot of the animated films too, they get to record in the space together, and they get to
Yeah.
play and improvise, and all that magic that comes out when you're in the room with all the other actors.
Yeah, and that's ultimate learning, and you're gonna grow so much by seeing and developing with other people. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, everyone that listens to your voice, that knows you but doesn't know you, all of these people in your world. But you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, I am hardworking, uh, loyal, and very determined individual. And I feel like if it wasn't for those qualities, I don't think I would be where I'm at today. And I think that I also project some of those qualities as well. I coach here and there to up and coming actors that want to get into voiceover, and I want to entrust that hard work into them, to say,
Yep.
this industry is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. There's so much rejection that you lose count, and to be able to just take it all in, not let it affect you, and just say, you know what, I'm going to keep going. That's what is the most important thing.
So if anyone wants to hire you for coaching, find out anything more, reach out, any of the good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
So you can check out my website at lianabdewi.com, or DM me on Instagram, first name, last name, Liana Bdewi. And yep, reach out.
Excellent. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. It's fascinating.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it.